Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome to Wednesday. A little cold, a little bit rainy. That's okay. Or well, there's no rain yet. Maybe later. What's that?
I hope not.
Why?
We've got soccer then.
Oh, you've got soccer.
Yeah.
Uh,
Actually, I wouldn't mind.
no?
It'll be fun.
I mean, if you're on the bench or on the field, it's maybe different.
Yeah. Well, you might get wet. A little bit. What time? 2, 3,
Four.
4? Yeah, hard to know.
The squeezing lines.
The sun can pop out anytime.
That's
Right now, it's
that's true.
unpredictable.
That's true. But you guys are tough, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See you on Friday.
What's that?
I'll see you on Friday.
Okay. So Awais is here. Good morning, Awais. Sean is here. Good morning, Sean. Basil's here. Good morning. Good morning, Basil. Elizabeth is here. Good morning. And Hamad is here. Good morning to you. Okay, so yesterday. Oh, yes. So yesterday we did a little exercise assignment. We talked about the rules for being a girl and rules for being a boy. And I would argue that we just kind of scratched the surface on that. I think there's a lot more rules in terms of how you carry yourself, what you say, how you say it, your tone of voice, how you dress, how you interact with other people, what you should do with your life. I mean, there's all kinds of layers to gender roles, right? And those, and I wanted us to sort of go through them and kind of understand what they were. But I also wanted to point out a few things. And number one is that, regardless of what gender we are, or regardless of which gender society sees us as, society is going to kind of try to impose those norms on us, right? And so we're given a sex assigned at birth, or well, I guess we should use sex here. We have a sex that's assigned to us at birth, and very quickly we're going to be socialized into that sex or into that gender, right? Immediately, as soon as parents find out that they have a boy or that they have a girl, often they start buying them little boy clothes, right? Sometimes we dress them in certain colors like blue. When they're old enough to play with toys, sometimes we get them toys that are kind of boy toys instead of girl toys. And so very, very quickly, we start kind of indoctrinating them into this idea of what it is to be a little boy or what it is to be a little girl, right? And I think that kids are also very intuitive in kind of figuring that out themselves, right? By watching other children, by watching television, they kind of figure out, what it is to be a little boy or what it is to be a little girl, right? I think that's part of how they're wired, is that they figure out who they are and learn how to behave, right? The other thing I wanted to point out is that of all of the kind of rules and kind of ideas that we thought of, I would say very few of those have a really strong biological basis, right? A lot of those rules are socially constructed, right? So, for instance, for men, I think we came up with the idea that men are supposed to be strong, right? We're supposed to be tough, right? I just said that to Ben and Rafay, right? When they're going to go play soccer in the rain, I was like, it's okay, you're tough, right? That's kind of a gender thing, right? We kind of expect guys to be tough. But, are men really any tougher than women, genetically speaking?
Yeah.
Genetically speaking?
I mean, we don't have heavy comparatively.
Right. So on a statistical level, men are usually stronger, physically stronger than women, right? We tend to be larger, we tend to have more muscle mass on average, so that's true. But are men necessarily any tougher than women? I don't know, right? Is there any reason why often when little babies are born, if it's a little girl, sometimes we dress them in pink, and if it's a little boy, we dress them in blue. It's very cute, right? But is there any reason why pink is a girl color and blue is a boy? Not really, right? We just kind of decided that that's the way it was going to be, right? So if we went through all of those rules, and I won't go through them all again, I think in many cases what we would find is that they are all socially constructed, right? They exist because we have all agreed that they should exist, right? And again, we're all very heavily socialized into those ideas because they become part of our identity, right? So the way in which a man should be, for instance, I've absorbed all those ideas, right? And some of them fit well with me and some of them fit less well, but I do feel pressure to live up to those gender roles, right? To those ideals of what a man should be. And I would assume that many women do the same, right? They feel a desire to live up to what society tells them a woman should be. And I think that's particularly true around mothers and motherhood. Women have there's a very strong kind of societal idea of what a mother should be, what the ideal mother is, and I think a lot of women feel pressure to be that, right? And that's
I think women feel pressure to become moms quick as well.
to become mums quick.
Yeah.
Like what you mean when they're young?
Earlier on in their life instead of like later when they're like financially stable or something.
I would say
So
about
they
the,
kind of rush it.
I would say about the rushing part from marriage.
You think? So what do you mean the rushing part, Rafay?
Rushing to get married, rushing to have kids.
There is an ideal age.
Like before 30 or something, you should have your first kid.
Oh, okay. So there's this kind of schedule
Mhm.
that you have to conform to, and so you should be married by this age, and you should have a kid by this age, and yeah, I don't know. Do you think, as the only woman in the room, do you think that's true? Yeah. Yeah. When Rafay and Ben, when you say that, you almost seem as if like it almost sounds like you're saying like there's no need to rush anything,
Yeah.
right?
I'm getting pressured by my dad.
You're getting the pressure. When are you gonna?
He wants me to get married before I turn 24 or 25.
Okay. Why is that? Do you think?
He doesn't think he's gonna live long enough to see his grandson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So he has perfectly.
Yeah.
He
The
has
guys in my family is very notorious for dying before the age of 55.
Oh dear.
Yeah. And I think he's turning 50 soon.
Oh, so he's looking at the clock and.
Yeah.
Okay, I see that. Rafay, why do you think people rush to do these sorts of things to
I
get?
don't know. Like, it's the society. They have an ideal age. Like after a certain age, it's like you're too old to get
Right. So
considered old.
there's a certain kind of there's a script, right? There's a real, you go to school, you go to university, you get married, you have a kid, maybe you buy a house or something like that, or start your career, and all of these things are kind of
And then the lifelong debt.
slotted in, and then the lifelong debt. Yeah, and then there's that.
Starts with the house.
None of us can escape that. Yeah, so I don't know. Does anyone else feel that there's that pressure to kind of do things on a schedule? Yeah.
Kinda, but then after I moved, then it was fine.
After you established a little bit of
Yeah.
a buffer zone.
Yeah.
I see. And it's interesting because there's not that you guys would be maybe thinking about this at the moment, but this is one area in which biology is connected, right? Because in terms of having children, it's much more difficult to conceive children after 35. Your chances of becoming pregnant start to go down,
Even
right?
with COVID as well.
What's that?
If you contracted COVID, your fertility rates go down as well for males.
Oh, I hadn't read that.
Yeah.
I hadn't read that. Well, I'm still good. I haven't contracted it. But so that's actually one place where there is a biological component, right? So some people might feel that yes, there's a script, there's a timeline, but you know, for a little more so for women, but also for men, there is kind of an end point, right? And so, you know, if you want kids, you've kind of got to have them before a certain point. And so if you kind of work your way backwards, it does create kind of yeah, there's the clock is ticking in some ways, right? And so again, when you're 18 or 21, it doesn't really matter, right? But you know, when you're 34 or 35, you know, if you're not married or if you're not with your person, then yeah, it might be, you know, you might be looking at the clock kind of anxiously, right? But yeah, but even within that timeline, many of those things are culturally constructed, right? So ideas about, you know, who we should be at what age, right? And what kind of things we should be doing. And again, not everyone gets married at 24, right? Especially nowadays. Yeah, so most of these ideas that we talk about are cultural constructions, not really biological fact, right? But again, because we absorb them really from the minute we're born, right? It's almost, you know, we could be sort of dressed in, you know, a little blue sailor's outfit or something if you're a boy, immediately after you're born almost, right? And so you're kind of being taught your gender role all the way through your life, right? So it's very easy to believe that, you know, that it is either natural or just a part of who you are. It becomes a part of who you are, but it's also the way you've been taught to be, right? So we have kind of a combination of our natural personality, but also this thing that society imposes on us, right? About who we should be as women or as men, right? That brings me to, right. Oops, I got a couple of duplicate slides here. That brings me to this. So I have a little documentary for you to watch, and I think it's quite interesting. And it's hosted by Laverne Cox. Does anyone know who Laverne is?
Sounds familiar.
Laverne is an actor, and so she's been in a bunch of things. Probably her most famous thing is Orange is the New Black.
Okay.
Yeah. So she's kind of that's where she's sort of made her name. She's a transgender person. She's a trans woman. So she was born as a man, but you know, her gender identity is a woman, and so that's how she kind of expresses herself to society and kind of lives her life. And so she kind of goes around the United States here talking to maybe 5 or 6 other transgender youths and kind of talk to them about what their experience is, okay, and how they what their lives are like, and you know, what sort of challenges they're having, and so I think it's worth a look because, you know, there's a lot of stigma around transgender people. There's a lot of you know, feelings about people don't really understand that experience. They don't understand what's going on. They think it's weird. They confuse people's gender identity with sex, and then they confuse that with sexual orientation, and there's just a lot of confusion, right? And in a way that's probably understandable, because here in the West we only started talking about this very recently. So people get confused. What's up?
I met one in the club before.
You've met a transgender person in the club? Yeah. What happened?
I don't know. I was pretty drunk,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't realize she was a transgender, but she still kind of looked like a guy. Like, I don't think the surgery looked kind of botched, but it was an interesting conversation.
It's tricky, right? And especially the puberty is kind of the dividing line, right? And so if if people are able to, sort of figure out their gender identity before puberty, and if they have access to hormones and things like that, they can actually kind of go through the right puberty, if you will. But a lot of transgender people don't, right? They either figure out, or they sort of gain the courage or the ability to sort of express themselves according to their gender identity a little bit later in life. So puberty has already happened, and so yeah, then it can be difficult to sort of pass as the other gender. But if you start taking hormones before puberty, then you can sort of prevent those sort of secondary sex changes that happen during puberty, and you can be more passable as either a man or a woman, whatever your gender identity is. Yeah, as I say, it depends on the person, right? It depends on the person. Okay, well, let's kind of jump into this. So, as you can see here, I have some questions for you to answer, because of course we can't watch something and not have questions, right? Everything's got a hook in it, So let me just take a second to pop this into Microsoft Teams for our at-home viewing audience here. And actually, Ben, you were saying that you have met a transgender person. Has anyone else met a transgender person that you know of? Because you might not know. No? You've met a few?
Yeah.
Yeah? Just like in passing, like you didn't sort of sit down and have a conversation, or?
There was one that went to my school,
Okay.
but she ended up transferring out.
Okay.
Because it's a boys' Catholic school.
Right.
She got bullied a lot.
Yeah.
Even the priests.
So their gender identity was male, even though they were born as female?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so there was some, it was hard to accept, right? And that's one of the questions that we can talk about either in the process of watching this or after, is that, if traditionally we kind of assume there's two genders, right? There's men and there's women. But, now that we have transgender people, how do we think of them, right? Where do we kind of fit them in? So is this student of yours, do we just think of him as a boy, regardless of, what his physical body looks like? Or, are transgender people another gender? Are they a third gender or a fourth gender? Like, how do we think about that?
I think it was tough, because I think we were all still pretty young.
Yeah.
I think 8 or 9, and it was in Sicily, and like it's Italy. No one likes a transgender there.
Sure.
So yeah, he really got everything.
Yeah, and that's cultural too, right? Because there's no.
It's what we were taught to do when we were growing up and stuff.
Yeah, people don't accept it, or there's no adequate explanation of it, right?
Are they okay with their body? I mean,
Are they okay with it?
yeah, I mean, it's the question. I mean, they like to be there.
Yeah.
But everybody, like, for example, is like boys.
Sure.
And they are okay with this or no? I mean, they want to change gender or no?
It would be difficult. It would be difficult for me to answer that, because I'm not a transgender person. I think it would. I think in terms of like how happy they are with their physical body, I think you would have to ask. Although I
actually did ask.
it would be rude, but like you'd have to ask each individual person how they felt, right? But
the person I talked to said she didn't feel comfortable as a man or something, like in a man's body.
Uh-huh.
That's why she chose to have the sex change.
Oh, okay, so they were their sex assigned at birth was male.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Now, this was the one I met at the club.
oh, okay, yeah. So yeah, you
They
can
say they don't feel comfortable.
sure,
They look at themselves in the mirror and they don't like it. That's why she went for like the change.
yeah, right. So yeah, you can have what they call bottom surgery, and so yeah, you can have your genitalia converted from one to the other, which is unbelievable that you can do that.
See, they actually found a way to do it.
Yeah, well, I mean, when it comes to sex stuff, humans always find a way to do it, right?
Yeah.
But some of your questions might be answered as we meet some of these people, and they'll talk about how they feel, and then we can, answer the questions, right? So I've got some questions here you can see about socialization and what people's experience is, language, questions about gender identity and pronouns, the male students in the locker room with Ari. You'll meet Ari in a second. And then we'll talk a little bit about dating and bullying and violence against women and trans women. So there's kind of a lot to see, there's a lot to hear, but it's a good documentary. And the people you'll meet here, the kids you'll meet are kind of awesome, but we'll get into that. So online people, I've put the questions and the link into Microsoft Teams, so you'll be able to watch it. I think we should watch the first 25 minutes and then take a break and then come back and ask questions, okay? So good morning. So what I'm going to do, online people, is turn you loose to watch 25 minutes, then take a 10-minute break, and then come back here and we'll talk about some questions, okay? So we'll see you in just a little bit. Enjoy the documentary. And we, of course, will do the same.
When a baby is born, one of the first questions asked is it a boy? Or is it a girl?
This is my room. Beware of girliness.
But what if it's not that simple?
The reality is you were born to be as a female.
I was 10 when my counselor told me that I was transgender.
I was at daycare, okay, the boys go over here, girls go over here. So I'd walk over with the boys. And they're like, no, you're actually supposed to be over here with the girls, sweetie, haha, that's cute.
I've been identifying as female for 5 years now.
All of a sudden, all my friends had to stop calling me Ariana and they had to call me Ari.
In the next hour, you'll meet 7 brave young men and women who will show us what it means to defy expectations.
I am the first openly Division I trans athlete.
To take risk and make changes.
It wasn't just coming out. It was, how am I gonna do all these medical things? And I'd never had a major surgery before.
And even endure discrimination and violence.
I remember like running after me and he like, what's up?
Just to have the same freedom to live their lives authentically as who they knew they were meant to be. I'm Laverne Cox, and this is the T Word. For many of us, the T in LGBT means more than transgender. It also means truth. When someone is trans, it means they identify differently from the gender they were assigned at birth based on genitalia. Gender isn't black and white. Even Facebook recently added over 50 choices for people to identify their own gender, from transsexual to cisgender and gender fluid, so it can be kind of confusing for some people to understand. But the most important thing to know about how individuals identify their gender is that it's not about what's in their pants. It's about what's in their hearts and minds.
When I was 5 years old, I knew that I was a boy. I didn't question it, that's just what it was.
When I was like 15, I realized that I was so depressed wearing clothes that people expected me to wear and how to look and act in certain ways.
I started exploring my gender identity when I was about 14. That whole period of time for me, I was just very depressed. I hated myself because I felt inherently wrong.
People transition at different points in their lives, but many trans people, like 18-year-old Ari, report knowing their true identity from early childhood.
Hey guys, I'm Ari. Welcome to my house. Come on in. I'm from New York City. I'm 18 years old and I love music. This guitar I just got for my birthday. It's a beautiful instrument. Thanks, Mom and Dad. This is an ASCAP award and I won it for my songwriting and stuff. I've been playing music and singing and songwriting since I was about 3. I want to make it my career and I love it so much.
Looking for Ariana for a shirt.
I knew I was a boy since I was really little, since I could dress myself. I always dress up in like boy outfits and I only had guy friends and we all used to like scream at the girls and tease the girls and there's something about me that just never connected with like female.
Here's my little pocket.
I have these things.
Do you have any peaches or
Trail mix.
Do you have peaches? No.
I was just really confused all the time. Like in middle school, it was especially difficult because I hit the wrong puberty and got a menstrual cycle and started growing little things up top. Nothing any boy wants to have at 13 years old. I wanted to be a teenage boy and I couldn't. One night I talked to my dad and he was like, "You don't sound happy." So I told my dad I hate being a girl. That night he did a little research into it and he told me like, "You're transgender." And I was like, "Oh, yes, there's a word for me, yes, thank God."
Ari was excited about finding a word to describe his truth, but there are some terms that these young trans people don't want to hear.
Some of the words that are offensive to me are tranny, shemale, and just a flat out man really hurts.
The word tranny, it's very offensive to us. It's like calling a gay person the F word.
Girl, boy, he, she, transgendered. If you're saying I'm transgendered, it's like something happened for me to be trans. It's like saying you've been blackened. Like, what happened for you to be black?
Any sort of language that is not gendered male is not correct for me. But the one that gets to me the most is when people refer to trans people as it.
12-year-old Zoe has been experiencing this kind of name calling from as early as she can remember, but no amount of harassment can stop her from living proudly as the girl she knows herself to be.
I'm from the Los Angeles area. I have one brother and I have one sister, and I have a mom. She's a single parent, and my dad has recently passed, but everything's still good. I still cope with it very well. So this is my room. Beware of girliness. I mean, it just has so much girliness. I love dancing, I love performing arts, I love acting, and I love drawing. This is Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. When I was 2, I first started feeling like I had a burden. When I was little, I always thought that boys and girls have the same genitalia and that we all have the same body parts, so I just thought, oh, they're confusing me for a boy. Then I found out that they actually have separate body parts. I felt very anxious because I was wondering, why do I have to live as a boy when I really feel that I'm a girl on the inside? And I was just very sad and depressed.
You have to get ready for camp. You have to start getting your stuff together. When she started walking and talking, she would generally gravitate to playing princess. She would wear my shoes. So I kind of understood that there was something different.
Oh, we gotta go pick out something for the formal dance. My friend Nikki, she wore this really pretty, like out there, like Cinderella dress. And I was like, I'm gonna top you next year. When I was 2, I remember that my mom just got me out of the shower and she's drying me. And I remember crying and saying, I know in my heart that I'm a girl. And it was just really confusing for her and she didn't know what to do.
When I started Googling more information about transgender people, most of the information that I found was negative. Horrible words were used. Abomination. And I was like, that's not my kid. She's gorgeous.
For Zoe, Ari, and countless others, Deciding to transition to a different gender can be powerfully liberating, but having to explain your new identity and appearance to everyone else can be incredibly difficult. Coming up on the T Word.
I see you as the child that I gave birth to, which is a female.
And later,
I've had so many opportunities to have sex and I haven't been able to ever have it.
some trans people feel it's not necessary to undergo medical transition, which could include hormones and or surgeries. But others choose to make changes on the outside that align with how they feel on the inside.
I guess first thing was I picked my name, Shane, and I started asking my close friends to call me Shane. And I would be Shane out in public. I felt so happy and so confident and so fulfilled.
I didn't know if I was trans, I didn't know who I was, but I knew that when I walked outside in a skirt, I felt happy.
I transitioned in front of everybody's eyes. I came in hot pink and I walked out the bus and everybody was like, whoa, that makes sense.
Transitioning can be both exciting and challenging. One of the biggest hurdles can be the time it takes friends and family to accept the change. So imagine how hard it must be to experience all of that under a national spotlight.
I am the first openly Division I trans athlete. There we go. My action shot for today.
In 2011, while playing on the women's basketball team at George Washington University, Kai was featured in a piece for the website Outsports announcing he was trans male. The story caught fire and made national headlines.
Why come forward now rather than play out your career and then do everything?
I mean, that's what my plan was, and then it got too tough. It got too tough to not be me, and to hear people call me a girl, say she, or just refer to me as something that I knew I wasn't.
Kai's coaches and teammates were quick to offer support, but he found himself faced with a barrage of questions from the media that made focusing on basketball difficult.
I went from doing a post-game interview about the game, of, oh, hey Kai, so what did you think about this? How was that pass? Things about sports, to, so are you attracted to your teammates? Are you gonna get the surgery? Do you have a penis? Like, what? How many sports do people play with their genitalia? Like, I don't understand. How many jump shots has LeBron James made with his penis? I don't know. I don't think any, right? So why are you asking me that? Does that have anything to do with my athletic ability? It doesn't. I was extremely overwhelmed. It was a lot. Having everybody pay attention to me just because I want to change my name and my pronouns. All I wanted was for people to just focus on my athletic ability. It made me the fact that I needed to work on my three-pointers a little bit more.
While transitioning in college was complicated for Kai, coming out as trans in elementary school presented its own set of unique challenges for Zoe and her family.
Oh, drama. I might be going into advanced trauma. After I transitioned, I had a lot of problems with the school board. They would always give me a hard time. The students bullied me as well, but they didn't bully me as hard as the administrators did. They said, stay away from her, she's a really bad kid, she's like the Antichrist. Yeah, it was really hard. Next year, for sure, I'm doing a talent show.
Good, finally. A lot of people gave me a really hard time. And they asked me to stop. They asked me not to encourage it. It wasn't up to them. If you see that your child is happy and they're living a regular life, why would you even want to change it just so it could fit into someone else's style?
I had other people come and tell me, oh, you're a sin, you deserve to live in hell, and you're gonna burn someday. And I was like, okay, we'll see you there too.
I remember sitting there in the whole crowd and being so afraid, how they were looking at her. But she's just great. She's not afraid, and that's a good thing. I fought a lot with everybody to let her buy her Barbies, let her play with her toys. Just leave my kid alone.
If my mom had not been supportive, I wouldn't be here today. I would probably be a suicide.
You're just a little kid still. The more you grow, the stronger you're gonna become.
Family support is crucial. A staggering 41% of transgender people have attempted suicide in their lifetime. That's 9 times the national average. But the rate is lower for those who maintain a positive relationship with family after coming out.
can't hear you, Mom.
Hear me?
Oh yeah, I hear you. In terms of who's on board with me being trans, my siblings are great. They call me their brother. My mom is just, I'm her oldest. If you ask me, she'd say that I'm her daughter. I don't know.
How is New York?
It's busy. It's fun. It's cool. I went to the Philly Trans Health Conference this past weekend. I talked to a trans kid, and he was asking me about how to talk to his parents about pronouns because they won't switch.
What do you mean they won't switch?
Like they won't say this is my son or he. They do what you do. You know, like they'll play the pronoun like game and just.
I don't say that either.
You don't say anything. Like that's not better. That's worse. I feel. After I told my team, I told my mom. Being raised a Jehovah's Witness, it was difficult. It was difficult for me, difficult for my mom to kind of process that, and it tore us apart. She just kept saying it was a phase. Like this is a phase. It's not right. You know, the Bible says this. The Bible says that.
What I want you to understand is this. I gave birth to you. I breastfed you for a year, and it's very difficult to just wake up one day and go, okay, this is Kai, and you know it took me 2 years to just call you Kai, and I still will not call you a different gender because I see you as the child that I gave birth to, which is a female.
When my mom will give my siblings pronouns, so like my little brother, like this is her son, or my sister, this is her daughter, and then this is Kai. That is the most hurtful to me because it makes me feel like I'm not a human.
An orange is an orange. You can't make it an apple. You were born in a female body.
Yes, I was born with a female body. Yes, we know. But that's just a body, mom, but that's just a body.
I'm mutilating something. Why would you want to do that? Okay, just answer that for me.
Because being in that old body, being in that old body made me feel like I didn't want to be alive anymore. It didn't feel comfortable. I couldn't even focus on basketball. I couldn't focus on school. I couldn't focus on doing anything. And until now I finally see me, I feel comfortable and I can actually focus on my life. But before that wasn't me.
That's wonderful that you feel comfortable, and I'm glad you feel in tune with yourself. I would not love you any different than what you decide. But my reality is that you were born to me as a female.
Would I love for my mom to, say it or to say, he or his? Yes. At the end of the day, my relationship with her supersedes pronouns. But the fact that she's not on board means that I can only handle so much. Yeah, I gotta go.
Okay. I love you and love you safe.
Alright, love you too. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Coming up on the T Word.
I've never been comfortable enough with myself to let a girl touch me.
My mother said straight women will want to date a man, and lesbians are gonna want to date a woman, so who's gonna want to date you?
Building friendships and finding romance is rarely easy when you're young, but growing up trans can add another layer of complication to all of these rites of passage.
If I was walking by a crowd in the school I was supposed to go to, they'd be like, oh, hey, gay boy. So I decided that it's best for me to move schools so I can find friends.
As a trans woman, I've lost a lot of friends. My life consists of Daniela, home, but that's it.
I think that friends are everything, and having supportive people around you is really important. Just one person that you can confide in and get some sort of validation of being a normal human being. It could mean everything to somebody.
It's good too. How are you?
For Ari, the social complications started when he revealed that he was trans to his classmates in 9th grade.
I came out before high school when I was about 14 as Ari, and that was really the beginning of my journey. I started really allowing myself to feel like a boy in public. My high school was not the greatest place. My first year there, I got bullied a lot. There was just a group of guys that just really didn't like me. They went to the head of my high school and said that they weren't comfortable with me changing the boys' locker room, and one of them mentioned that I watched them pee, which is just ridiculous. Like, nobody watches anybody pee.
You've never seen Clueless? Dude, it's like kind of a chick flick, but it's so funny.
It was a really rough place to transition. I ended up not really like making it there. I left.
Do you want to say it? Sure.
I started testosterone my sophomore year in high school, and that was one of the most exciting points in my life because I started new high school, new people, fresh start, and my voice was low. From that point on, my transition became more of a life for Ari as like a young guy.
Even though Ari has had several girlfriends in recent years, he still struggles with how to express his sexuality.
This is how I get changed by myself.
Dating and my sex life, it's a rough thing, especially because, at least for me, sex is something that's always been really scary to me. If I get with a girl, what if she tries to put her hand in my pants and then freaks out? Because that's happened to me before and it really sucks.
Were you excited about seeing anyone specific?
I mean, everybody. Definitely like super ultra mega excited for Rachel to come out.
Today is my 18th birthday, and I'm gonna be having a bunch of my really close friends over for like decent sized little party.
Oh, you fucking cake! Warning all of you, Mowgli might hump you. No, he will hump you.
Hey, get out of my house! Happy birthday!
I've had so many opportunities to have sex and I haven't been able to ever have it.
Welcome.
Even with a girlfriend, I've never been comfortable enough with myself to let a girl touch me.
Thank you, guys.
Your relationship relies on everything but sex.
Oh, now I got to make a wish, and it can't be the wish that I told certain people.
Being trans and dating can be really tricky and a really emotional thing, and you have to really find someone who's safe and who is really, really supportive and proves to you that they're supportive.
Dating and sex can definitely be harder for some trans people to navigate.
Let's go back and graph some more of these equations.
But Shane from Baltimore, Maryland, is living proof that true love can transcend gender boundaries.
When I came out as trans, relationships were a very complicated thing for me because I really, like my mother said, who is going to love me? She was worried as a mother that I wouldn't be able to find a partner to share my life with because she said straight women will want to date a man and lesbians are going to want to date a woman, so who's going to want to date you? So I have this little Amish boy haircut right now. I hated having long hair, and every time that I did have long hair, I just threw it up in a ponytail. And I believed it for a long time. I didn't think that anyone would love me. I played baseball for a while. And I thought that it would always have to be the baggage that I brought along into whatever relationship that I was bringing. Hey, I'm trans, I hope that that's okay.
Kind of spice it up.
You're always spicing it up. I didn't think that anyone would love me or be able to love me.
I can't believe it's been a year. I can believe, but I can't believe it's been a year.
Until Jess. We met through a mutual friend. And then one day, our friends had gone out and we were left alone, and we started talking about life. I never heard another human vocalize the thoughts in my head so articulately. And from that point on, I was like, she's gonna be in my life somehow.
I don't trust you. That's why I don't trust you. I did not know anything about trans people or the trans community prior to dating Shane. There you go, get the ball. The first time we were intimate, we were taking a shower together, and he said, I know you haven't seen any other trans people naked, and I just didn't want to get naked and throw you off. I said, Shane, you're not an alien. You're going to have parts that I'm familiar with, and that's fine.
pools for so long, I forgot how to swim. I can imagine, no, it's a real thing.
I knew from literally the first time I kissed her that I wanted to marry her. Within the week of kissing, we were officially dating, and within 6 weeks, we had moved in together. She is what I largely attribute to how successful I am, because she shows me support, unconditional love, and makes me feel like I can do anything, and it's amazing.
Coming up on the T Word,
I wrote, hey, I have to tell you something important.
Avery reveals the complexities of dating as a trans woman and the danger she faces just for being herself.
I don't like to disclose in person. It's a very real possibility that we can be harmed physically.
For most people, being perceived as the gender we identify as goes a long way towards making our daily lives less stressful.
I have what I call passing privilege, which is that when I'm walking down the street, people don't know that I'm trans. They're perceiving me as a straight white man, but not everybody has that privilege.
I decided to take testosterone because every time I would walk anywhere, I would try to order a sandwich. And they would ask, how can I help you, sir? And I would answer and I'd say, I want a roast beef sandwich. And they'd be like, oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. They'd be like, no, you had it right the first time.
But sometimes, the consequences of not passing can be very serious.
My definition of getting clocked is somebody realizing you're not a cis-born woman or a regular girl. When I got clocked, I felt like I wasn't representing what I wanted to show, and it made me feel very insecure.
20-year-old Avery has been identifying as female for 5 years.
I grew up with a single mom and 4 sisters. It was a lot of estrogen, a lot of girls.
At what point in your life did you realize they were different?
Probably when I was like 15. I had 2 older sisters, and they always wanted me to be their hot little brother that like got girls and was like a player and stuff, but that really wasn't me. Ever since that kind of stuff was happening, I was like, this doesn't feel right.
Because more often than not, Avery's perceived as the female she is. She struggles with how and when to reveal she's trans. She knows all too well that doing so to the wrong person at the wrong time can be dangerous.
So I've been talking to this guy, and I met him online, and he's really funny, and I haven't disclosed that I'm trans yet, and I'm a little nervous to see what he says. There's a time where I didn't disclose that I was trans, and that didn't go so well.
The threat of violence is something that's really real for you.
That's a real possibility for me because, you know, sometimes, especially with girls like us, we like to test our realness. We like to go out and be like, ooh, we're so unclockable and everything. But it's a very real possibility that we can be harmed physically. You always see cases where these women are murdered and killed, and that's always in the back of my head, which is why I'm always cautious when it comes to dating. I wrote, hey, I have to tell you something important. I need to let you know that I'm transgender. I don't like to disclose in person. I like to be a little cautious about that. Texting is the best way. Exactly. Okay, so he just asked, so what do you have down there? This is actually really typical on like a lot of guys. I feel like it's really kind of insensitive and very personal to ask, and I don't know, we just met, like I don't want to talk about, you know, that area down there.
So many people will say that no matter what surgery you have, you're always the gender that you're assigned at birth.
Yeah.
Even if you have bottom surgery, and definitely if you don't have bottom surgery, you are the gender you were assigned at birth. What would you say to that?
I feel like that is just ignorant. Women come in all shapes and sizes, and I feel like just to discredit us because we were born with a certain genitalia is kind of ignorant, and you know, I feel like it's more fluid than that. Hero, I'm sorry I'm not into that. I don't know why it took 2 hours, but it didn't work out, so.
Most of the time, Avery says she experiences rejection when she discloses that she's trans. But sometimes, she meets someone who's open to getting to know her just the way she is.
Hi.
Okay, let's take a little break. We'll come back in 10 minutes. We'll talk about some of these questions and so much to talk about. Okay, but take a break. 2716. Okay. Okay, whoops, and we are back. And we're back. So, some interesting things so far, right? We've met Ari, who's kind of the young man, the musician. We've met Avery, the girl with the kind of long reddish-brown hair. We've met Kai, the basketball player. We've met Zoe, the young girl in pink. And Shane, right? And we met Shane, the guy with the girlfriend, Jessica, right? So we've met these 5 young people, I think, so far. And I guess this is kind of a general question, but in what ways has socialization kind of affected the lives of these young people? Again, it's kind of a general question, but worth asking.
Sorry, what was the question?
The number 1, how has socialization played a role in the lives of these young people?
As kids, like they were taught what their gender, what they are.
Yeah.
But then at a certain age, they realized they're not what they were assigned.
Yeah.
So and then they have to change, and so it's a difficult phase to change as people discriminate.
Yeah, they're kind of they've grown up in a family unit and sometimes family unit, but in a society that's been telling them that, you know, this is what you are, right? While they feel differently, right? Which again I think is true of all socialization, right? Not all socialization, but much of socialization tells us what we should be, right? We just did that in terms of men and women, right? Society is telling us what we should be as young people, as men, as women, as citizens of our country, as members of our religion, if you're religious. There are ideas telling us how we should be, right? And these young people are no different, right? Society is telling them how they should be, and they're kind of pushing back and saying, no, that's not me, right? How do these young people know their gender? How do they know their gender identity inside? Yeah. So again, kids pretty quickly figure out the differences between girls and boys, right? They understand the social messaging that is being sort of taught to them. They know what girls are like and what boys are like, and they pretty quickly figure out that, oh, you know, I don't belong here. I belong over there, right? And it's pretty interesting because they just seem to kind of know, right? They instinctively know where they kind of belong and who and what they are. And sometimes quite young, right? Like these kids are, you know, as soon as they're, like Zoe said, basically as soon as she was old enough to walk and talk, she started to gravitate towards girly things, right? Princesses and high heels and things like that, right? And so again, like these kids are very young and don't understand gender roles in any way, but they know who and what they are, right? And they know kind of what fits for them. How do you know what gender you are? What's that?
My attraction, my preferred.
But your attractions are different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, yeah, like who you might be attracted to in terms of gender, that's a different thing, right? But how do you know if you are a man or a woman? Or maybe neither of those things, but how do you know that? I know it, but how do I know it? Your experience? How do you mean?
How we look.
Okay, sure, but some of these people said that they had an issue with that because they looked in the mirror and they're like, that's not me, right? What I see in the mirror is not what's inside. It's not who I am, right? So yes, right, it's I hear that it works for you, but for some people it doesn't work, right? Some people look in the mirror and say it's not who I am. But how do you know?
So depends if you're comfortable with wearing a skirt and trousers.
Well, it has more to do than just comfort, right? Like I wouldn't wear one, although on a hot day I think about it because I assume it must be much cooler than pants, right?
What, shorts?
Well, even shorts. A skirt, think of the airflow. Like
No, Belgium.
no, I think it would be very refreshing, but I don't wear one in the summer, right? Why not? It's not gender appropriate, right? I don't want to get weird looks from people as I walk down the street, in a nice light yellow, breezy skirt, right? I don't really want that sort of attention, but it's also not me, right? That wouldn't be me expressing my gender, right? Because for the most part we follow gender rules, right? There's nothing wrong with a man wearing a skirt, I guess, if he wants to, but I don't want to because, again, I prefer to follow most of the gender rules that society provides to me, right? So, yeah, comfort, but it's a little more than comfort, I think, right? So, think about the mirror thing, right? Some of these people look in the mirror and they're like, that's not me, right? But now that they are expressing what's inside, now that what's outside is more in alignment with what's inside, now they look in the mirror and they're like, yeah, that's right? That's who I am. Imagine, this won't work as well for women if you're listening because clothing is gendered more for female than it is for males, right? So could a woman wear what I'm wearing now? Absolutely, right? Malika, you're almost wearing exactly what I'm wearing anyway, right? So yeah, so this type of clothing is not really gendered, right? But guys, would you if suddenly I snapped my fingers and all of you were wearing, beautiful dresses and makeup and your hair was nicely done and you had a nice, appropriate handbag with you and you looked in the mirror, what would you think? You'd probably think, oh, I don't make a very attractive woman at all, or at least that's what I would think.
We did it for my friend's birthday party.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all the guys dressed up like in skirts and like crop tops.
Right.
Yeah, it was funny, but my mom gave me shit.
She gave you shit, why?
Because I have a tattoo here that she didn't know about, and I
Oh.
forgot about it. And
Oh.
I walked out with the crop top, and she was like, "What the hell is that?"
I see. Okay. So there
I
was
thought
a.
she meant the skirt, but that was the tattoo. So
Okay, so you accidentally revealed
yeah.
a tattoo. Okay. But again, you would look in the mirror and you would be like, oh my God, that's not me, right? Yeah.
It was weird, like,
It was. Yeah, I'm sure
I
it
feel
was.
like I have an Aries or something.
I'm sure it was very bizarre, right? And yeah, like it's like, yeah, that's not me, right? And when you get up in the morning and put on your regular clothes and you look in the mirror and you're like, yeah, that is me, right? Or that's me, really tired and just got out of bed and my hair is everywhere. But either way, you kind of know that it's you, right? And so these people are kind of dressing in an alignment with their gender identity because then they get to look in the mirror and say, yeah, that's me, right? That's who I am. Why is language important when talking to transgender people and about transgender people? You have to what? Well, why would it be difficult? Right. Well, what should we call these people? What should we call transgender people? Well, sometimes if you don't know, right? If you're not sure, right? Have you seen people either on Twitter or Instagram or maybe on LinkedIn if you're using LinkedIn. Have you seen them put their pronouns after their name? Have you ever seen you'll see somebody's name, like you might see my name, and then in brackets you might see he/him? Have you ever seen that? Malika, yes? No? No? So yeah, that's people starting to tell you, because again, you might not know immediately, that they'll actually tell you what their pronouns are so that you can use the correct ones. Yeah, if you don't know, sometimes it's safer to use their name, right? So you can just call them by their name. But why is it important to kind of not to use the wrong ones, especially on purpose?
They were gonna try might get a different person.
Well, yeah, but yeah, it would be hurtful, right? I mean, you know, you may not remember this, but on the first day when we first came in here and we did attendance, I think I asked you all, I said, okay, I'm going to do attendance, but you know, if you want me to call you by a different name, tell me, right? Let me know and I will call you whatever you want, right? And part of the reason I do that is because the way that names get entered in our system is weird, and sometimes I have 5 names listed and I don't know which is the person's last name or first name or what they want to be called. But the other reason I do it is because it has to do with identity, right? And it has to do with kind of validating who you are, right? I mean, imagine if the first day we came in and I said, oh, you know, what's your name? Oh, too difficult. I'm just going to call you John. Is that okay, John? No, it's not okay, right? Because it's like I just totally invalidated your identity, right? I just said, oh, Rafay, it's too difficult. I'm just going to call you something else, right? And so that's not nice, right? When we use people's names, we acknowledge who they are, right? We acknowledge their identity. We're saying, I see you. Rafay, I see you as you are, right? Yoya, I see you as you are, right? So you're validating people, and when you don't use appropriate pronouns, you're devaluing them, right? You're invalidating them. You're saying, I don't see you as what you are. I'm gonna tell you what you are. You look like a John to me. You don't. I'm teasing, but yeah. And so that's kind of why it's important, right? It's hurtful, right? And it pushes people. It kind of pushes people away. It invalidates their identity, right? Which I guess brings us to Kai, right? And that was the struggle that Kai was having with his mom, right? His mom was having a lot of trouble seeing Kai as a young man, right? Having, as she mentions, given birth to a little girl, right? What did you think of that exchange between Kai and his mom? Did you react to it? What were you thinking?
I don't know. I'll probably think the same way as well.
As the mom or as Kai? Yeah, well, I assume it's very difficult to, accept such a massive,
especially the eldest one.
Change, yeah. Why especially the eldest one?
I don't know, for my culture, like the eldest kid is usually like the role model, right, and everything, take over the business and everything.
Yeah.
For them to do something like this.
Yeah, sometimes the first there's a lot of expectation on the oldest child, right?
I was thinking if it was my son and said he was gay or if he was transgender.
Yeah.
I'd be disappointed.
Well, it would certainly be a big adjustment, right? Because again, identity is a big part, or gender identity is a big part of who we are, right? And so, yeah, to sort of suddenly, have to think about, a child as a different gender, yeah, I think that would be a tough.
I'll need a few years.
That would be a tough gear shift, right? That is a big thing, right? That is a big thing. I'm just going to throw this up here. This is a bit of a, it's not quite in line with what we're talking about right now, but Hamad asked it, and I do want to talk about it. So why do people like Ben Shapiro say there are only two genders if it's a social construct? Is anyone familiar with Ben Shapiro's argument here? Does anyone know what he's talking about? Well, so Hamad, maybe I'll look into this after class and try to figure out what Ben is saying. But for me, like, the answer is almost in the question, right? Because gender is a social construction, you can have as many as you want, right? First Nations people, Indigenous people in North America, they often have 3 or 4 genders in their traditional culture, because while the West is, while we're new to this, right, and the U.S. and Canada is like, oh, people are transgender, weird. Indigenous people kind of knew that for quite a while, and so in their cultures, it's normalized for some people to be something other than just male or just female. And so they call these people, there's a bunch of names, but one of the names is Two-Spirit, right? So you have a bit of the male spirit and a bit of the female spirit. You're Two-Spirit, right? And again, for Indigenous cultures, there's nothing weird going on here, right? This is just the way it is. Lots of people are male or female. Some people don't fit into those categories, they fit into other ones. That's how it is, nobody cares, whatever, right? So again, there are as many genders as your culture says there is, right? Because again, all of those categories are pretty much made up, right? Yeah, they're pretty much made up. So yeah, Hamad, I'll look into that a little bit later and just see if I can figure out what Ben is saying, and maybe we can come back to it tomorrow. But yeah, I would say to Ben, you can make an argument for 2, but you can make an argument for just about anything else, right, in terms of gender, because gender is a social construct. So society can construct as many or as few as they feel works, right? Yeah, so number 4 here, why were so many people asking questions about Kai's gender identity rather than his athletic performance?
It's not common.
True, right? There was probably a certain amount of novelty about the story, right? Not every female basketball player transitions to being a male basketball player, right? That's novel, that's interesting. Why else? Why else? Why did they stop? They seem to stop asking Kai questions about the basketball game. And he made that comment. He said, how many jump shots has LeBron James made with his penis, right? Probably none. Well, actually, LeBron could probably make at least one. But I don't know. He's a good basketball player, right? So I don't watch basketball. I have no idea. Good morning, Daniel. So, but why did the questions shift, right? Certainly the novelty of the story. Sure, they're curious, but what? Maybe. I'm kind of giving you a hint about the resume study. Do you know what I'm hinting at?
You should play with males instead.
Well, that's a whole other question, right? And it's one that people like to bring up when we talk about transgender people, particularly with regard to athletes, right? So if you have someone like Kai, who's a trans man, in which league should Kai be allowed to play, right? Kai was born as a female, identifies as a male. Where should they be allowed to play, right? Women's basketball, men's basketball, no basketball at all? What do we do with that, right? And again, that's still an open question. I don't know what the answer to that is. I'm sure there's an answer, but I think it's a little different than what's going on here. But it's people have to figure that out.
There was a whole scene a couple years back in the track and field team. I think he used to be a guy and had a gender swap.
Yeah.
Won the event, but people were saying it doesn't count.
Right. Yeah, because sports are gendered, right? And they're based on the societal construct of two genders, right? And so someone who doesn't fit, people don't really know what to do, right? And so, again, was it, did they have an advantage? Did they not? Should they have won anyway? I mean, yeah, there's things to be figured out for sure. Yeah, I was thinking with this one about, you remember when we talked about the resumes that went out, and I said that the resumes with black sounding names were viewed through a certain lens, right? They were viewed through kind of all of the subconscious stereotypes that people had about Black Americans. And here I almost feel like the same thing is happening, right? So they're interviewing Kai as a woman. I don't know what Kai's name was prior. They're interviewing her about her women's basketball, and then suddenly, she says, "No, actually, I'm male. My name is Kai. This is how I want to be referred to." And suddenly, the lenses come down, right? Now we're seeing Kai through this lens of transgenderism, right? And all of the sort of stereotypes and prejudices that we have, right? And so, yeah, there's a certain amount of novelty, right? And there's a certain amount of curiosity that people might have. I get that. But also, this is a sporting event, right? Does anyone here watch a popular sport? Basketball, football, hockey, real football, not American football? Yeah. Yeah. So in the after game interviews with the coach or with the players, do they ever talk about the players' personal lives? Hey, so how's your marriage? Right? What's in your pants, right? That stuff never comes up, nor should it, right? Because those players are there to do a job, right? They're playing the sport, and the interviewers get to ask them about sports stuff, right? You don't get to ask about personal stuff. I can only imagine if, interviewing some hockey player after the game, and it's like, so, I heard you had a fight with your wife. The hockey player would probably punch the guy in the face, right? Because it's not his business, right? But somehow this becomes everybody's business, right? Somehow we're allowed to ask a lot of inappropriate questions, right? About who Kai does or doesn't have a crush on, or, what's in his pants, or, yeah, none of that has anything to do with sports. And again, nobody would ask LeBron James any of those questions, right? Or at least they wouldn't do it twice. But here, Kai has to put up with it, right? Because Kai is seen through those lenses, right? Kai is now different, right? Kai is now, in a way, public property, right? We don't have to follow regular social norms anymore because Kai is different, right? Whereas with any other athlete, again, LeBron James, you wouldn't dare ask him about any of that stuff, right? He would tell you to, what, right? Really quick. But again, Kai has to put up with it for some reason. Not for some reason, because he's transgender and people don't extend the same kind of social norms as they extend to other people. I think we kind of covered number 5. We didn't get to number 6 yet, did we? Oh yeah, we did. We did. Yeah, so Ari said that there was some boys were uncomfortable with Ari changing in the locker room with them. Why were they uncomfortable, do you think?
You still saw him as a girl.
Still saw him as a girl, yeah. And what else? Oh, excuse me. Whew. They saw him as a girl. What were they kind of worried about?
Oh, are you looking at the penises?
Yeah, right? Because some of the guys said, "Oh, he's watching us pee," right? And Ari's like, "No, nobody watches anyone pee. That's ridiculous." But yeah, like why would they be worried about Ari checking them out? Is Ari straight or gay?
Oh, they didn't know. Oh wait, he was gay, right? Technically.
Well, this is the thing.
No, he wasn't.
This is where it gets tricky, because sexual orientation, right, is the way we describe it is in terms of same or opposite, right? Are you attracted to the same gender as you or the opposite gender as you, right? So if you want to talk about anyone's sexual orientation, but especially if you want to talk about the sexual orientation of trans people, you kind of have to accept their gender first, right? And you have to accept their gender identity first, right? So if you're not sure if you want to see Ari as a woman or a man, then it gets really confusing to try to talk about his sexuality, right? Because it's like, oh, well, what is he, right? So I'm going to suggest that you have to accept his gender identity first before you can talk about his sexual orientation. So I'm going to go ahead and accept Ari as a young man. Okay, that's who he feels he is inside. That's how he expresses himself to the world. Why should we see him as straight? Yeah, right. He seems to be attracted to the opposite sex. He's had lots of girlfriends. He bragged. Like, give me a break, Ari. He said he had lots of girlfriends. He seemed to be very interested in Rachel coming over, right, for his birthday, and of course she did. He was very excited for that. So yeah, Ari's a straight man, right? So if he's in the locker room, does he want to look at anyone else's penis? Not really, right? He has no interest, right? But it's interesting how we divide up change rooms not by sexuality but by gender, right? So in a way, we kind of assume that everyone is straight. But are there gay guys wandering around locker rooms? Sure there are, right? Are there lesbians walking around women's change rooms? Sure, right? So we kind of divide it up according to gender, but really what we're trying to do is divide it by sexuality, right? Or we're assuming that that's what we're doing. But again, the kids here at the school are combining or conflating or confusing Ari's gender identity with his sexual orientation, right? And so, yes, he is a trans man. Yes, he was born as a female, but he's a straight guy. He doesn't want to look at anyone else's penis, right? He's not into that. So, again, these guys are having a lot of discomfort, but it's not really based on anything, right? Ari's not interested in that. And even if he was, there's no rules against it anyway, right? There's no rule that says gay guys can't come into the male change room, is there? Not that I've ever seen. So nothing is wrong here except these guys are uncomfortable with Ari's gender identity, right? They're uncomfortable with that difference. Right? Oh, I guess we did get to this, and we have like 3 minutes to talk about it, so it's good. Why is dating much more difficult for trans people, would you say?
Not everyone's open to the idea.
Yeah, not everyone's. Why might people not be open to that idea?
People don't see them as the gender they are and the gender they were.
Right.
Like if you're a guy dating a trans woman, you feel like you're dating a guy, and then you think they're gay, but then you're not, and then you have that whole thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's tricky, right? Because again, I won't speak for anyone else's culture, But in Western society here, yeah, there's some confusion, right? Again, if you don't, let's say Ari, for instance, if you don't accept Ari as a man, then it gets real confusing, right? Because then you don't know what to do with him, right? Is he female? Is he male? Is he gay? Is he straight? If I like him, am I gay? Am I straight? I don't know, right? Everything gets confusing. And so, yeah, number one, you have to be able to accept the gender that they are, but also people have their own identity, right? They have their own sexual identity to worry about. And what does it mean, right? What does it mean if you think of yourself as a straight man, for instance, and you look at Avery, for instance, and say, yeah, she's pretty cute, right? What does that mean? Does that mean you're gay, right? Or bisexual or something else? It's confusing, right? And for a lot of guys in particular, it is threatening to their sexuality as well, right? Because in lots of male culture, there's a pretty strong anti-homosexuality kind of bias, right? So the last thing you want to do is be seen as feminine or gay, right? And so, yeah, it can to guys if they look at Avery or if they meet her or if they, if they're using a dating app with her and then they find out, oh, this girl that I was attracted to is a trans woman, right? And then it causes them to question their own sexuality. And that's of course why, this is the last thing we'll say here, but that's why Avery doesn't disclose her trans identity in person, right? That's why she does it over text, because again, ideally you would like people to react like, oh, that's cool, right? Or, I don't think I'm entirely into that. You're very nice, but thanks, but no thanks, right? You would like it to go that way. But again, some people have a very strong and sometimes violent reaction, right? Because again, sexual identity is a deep part of culture, right? It's one that people have a pretty strong emotional attachment to, right? And so, yeah, unfortunately, it can be very dangerous for her to be found out, right? To be clocked, to not pass as a woman, right? Specifically if a guy finds her attractive, right? Because again, it calls into question their sexuality, and again, some guys have a very strong reaction to that, right? But she's cute, right? Cute girl. Okay. That is all the time we have today. Come back tomorrow. We will wrap this up. And I forget what's next, but something to do with sexism. Okay. That is all, people. Good work today. Hamad, I'll try to look into the Ben Shapiro argument and maybe we can talk about it a bit tomorrow. But I will see you then. Bye.